Good morning, my fellow humans. I hope you're having a beautiful morning today. The sun is shining, there is oxygen in the atmosphere, and it is relatively within human tolerances, the humidity and the heat today in many regions of the world. Anyway, I wanted to start this off in a little different way. There's only one other video that's currently in the public domain on this channel. I have been practicing, I guess you could say, how I'm going to talk to the camera here and to my fellow humans. I've been kind of practicing this for a little bit, trying to feel more natural and comfortable with the camera. I am used to communicating with humans when they're in the room, and I wanted to kind of bring those truths to this type of interaction. There's a lot of reasons why I want to start doing this. And I am going to take the advice of my beautiful bride that you don't have to explain yourself to everything and everyone. Out of context, that may sound harsh. It's actually a good piece of wisdom. That does not mean that I will not continue to pontificate in the way that I am, because that is who I am. And speaking of tolerances, I have been blessed in my life with being, for lack of a better term, swimming in a lot of different subcultures and being trusted and having the trust of some of the most amazing people on this planet in this epoch during my time on this earth. Tolerances is an interesting concept. I tend to think of it more, well, let's back up. Like I said, I have been blessed with being a member of a lot of different subcultures. Some of those subcultures are antithetical to each other. And I am a seeker of beautiful souls, for lack of a better term. As such, I have been exposed to a large spectrum of humanity, both the sacred and the profane, the people that you would canonically call evil, and the people who you would canonically call saints. And, I have my own wisdom in measuring where those are, where people are on the tolerance band. But words as well as emotions, when it comes to generational wisdom or continuity of human thought, we have to be really defining on what and how we're talking about things, especially when language is not something that is common. What does that mean? Just like the word tolerance is, it can mean a lot of different things based upon the situation, the social construct, the individual that you are communicating to, and their access to a common language. When I say tolerances, I'm going to read, it actually happens to be the third or fourth definition that most dictionaries will give you. A third in this case. Tolerance is an allowable amount of variation of a specified quantity, especially in the dimensions of a machine or part. That's when I speak of tolerances, that's generally what I mean. Now, not many of us are machinists these days. I have been blessed with knowing some really amazing artisans and machinists and skilled technicians. I have benefited from them and their wisdom all my life. I have had the great privilege of, for instance, calling friend, a machinist, whose understanding of tolerances and understanding of his craft and trade are so extreme that he is sought out for very specific and very, very tight machining. I have seen an artisan at work when the human understanding of tolerances is so refined that a sixth sense emerges, the four or five senses of the humans, of a human, and then their spirit, for lack of a better term, that's another term we'll talk about later, come into play I have observed almost a spiritual, a spiritual communion of a machinist in his or her tools, and their medium. And it is astounding how a human can understand tolerances and his or her tools to the point where when you objectively measure the output, it's astoundingly accurate with old tools. That is the human spirit, for lack of a better term, and human skill and ingenuity, and there's a whole bunch of different topics and aspects associated with. If you watch a skilled individual with their tools, the word tolerance has a different dimension. That's me. I am a seeker of souls, for lack of a better term, and in those souls, in the subcultures that I have experienced and tasted, the one thing that is constant is that they are human. And I believe that I have a wide range of tolerances for the human soul, spirit, emotions, and bodies. I got skin in the game, we'll just put it that way. A lot of the ways that people feel justified in judging each other is because of their perception. They perceive that another individual or whatever has a certain degree of worth, a certain degree of capacity, a certain value a certain value system or set. And just like everything, nothing is in a vacuum, and things are absolutely not as simple as you would think. And I, in my life, feel that I have been given the very great privilege, firstly, of having the capacity to understand and to experience a much wider range of acceptable human existence than most people are privileged to observe. But also, with my upbringing and my own unique viewpoint of the universe, my own viewpoint of the world, of humanity, of my own history, of my own upbringing, my nature and my nurture, I feel like I have a unique viewpoint, just like you do, speaking as a human. The world is changing. Humans are changing. That is how evolution works, especially social evolution. And sometimes mutations are good, and sometimes they are bad. And sometimes, in a generational way, humans can be quite practical and pragmatic when it comes down to it. Survival is really, we're good at it. We really are. We are tool users. We adapt the world around us as well as we adapt around the world. And that has proven to be an excellent survival mechanism over the millennia. Now, in 2025, as one of those unique perspectives that I bring to the table. Technology, politics, the human experience, human spirit, courtesy, love, hate, all of those things that make us human tend to be really constant. The human combative behavior, the hoplology, the study of human combative behavior, is one of those constants of human experience that is like understanding how atoms work. It's a fundamental function of the human animal and the human spirit as it interacts with the world around it, as it, for lack of a better term, and hallucinates the consciousness around it, as it perceives what reality is. Carl Sagan always enjoyed saying that we are the universe trying to understand itself. That, in my opinion, is both a fundamentally profound statement, regardless of how you, human, view the world and what you believe is your perceived reality and how you believe you exist, if you do. And there are huge ramifications associated with that. And it's also, like all good truth, it's internally consistent, but it also gives you insight into things that you wouldn't normally think or see. But what does that really mean? The universe we are the universe trying to understand itself. Think about what you're doing right now. You're theoretically, if a human ever sees this, and we'll get to that in a bit, and not today, but I've got some thoughts about that. But if anyone ever sees this video, you are seeing me. You are seeing and experiencing a very, very small portion of my life, of my viewpoint of the world, from my angle, from my experiences, from my chair, from my shoes, for lack of a better term. I find that wisdom and the understanding and the experience of reveling in the human experience is so enriched, is far more enriched if you try to put yourself in other people's angles, in other people's shoes, for lack of a better term, without necessarily concluding whether that individual is worthy or not. I'm consciously avoiding the word judgment because that's a big topic, and I think I want to talk through that in the future as I learn how to deal with this format, as I learn how to express myself through this. There's a lot of different things that I would like to kind of discuss. Even if, as I say, no one ever sees this. I am in a unique place in my life. I am middle-aged, depending on your tolerances, right? Depending on how you're measuring that. I'm a middle-aged white man in 2025 in the United States of America. I am canonically privileged, and I have had a really unique life, and I have experienced the vast majority of socio-political strata and religious strata and economic strata, etc. I have swimmed in a lot of streams. And just like hoplology, the human soul and the human spirit is always the same. And that's the core of it. Regardless of who you are, regardless of if you embrace the sacred or the profane, regardless of whether you are currently incarcerated or you are one of the 87 decabillionaires that rule our lives here in the United States and the world. Regardless of that spectrum of existence, there are certain functions that make you human. And especially when you talk about generations, it's difficult for the young to understand and to deal with the judgment of the old, and it's difficult for the old to continue to grow in their understanding and language such that they are relevant to the new. We live in a really fascinating socio-political and technological time where in my lifetime, we always like to talk about, isn't it crazy? I'm a, pseudo-intellectual. I don't have the discipline to actually call myself an intellectual or a scholar. That's not my role in life. My role is more of a chaplain or someone who extracts meaning from, someone who observes meaning of the spirit around him. I'll leave the intellectualist and I'll leave that to the disciplines of others, those thought disciplines to others. That's not my viewpoint in the universe. That's not the life that I am leading or supposed to lead so that I can further enrich the universe with my conscious life. All that being said, life is changing. And back to the point that I was trying to make, I am a pseudo-historian, and the life cycles, the patterns of behavior of humans against their mortality, against their baser and their more divine proclivities, all of those things are being challenged by our cleverness, by our tools that we have created, by the constructs and the social experiments that our subcultures are creating. Humans always evolve, especially socially and technologically, but in the last 250 years since our founding fathers, since the ideas associated with the Constitution, etc., since that time, the changes in how humans have to deal and interact with the universe and the world are just drastically, fundamentally, it feels, challenging to the human animal, to the human spirit, to the divinity that is us. But I think you could argue, and intellectually I think you could measure, that in my lifetime, from the early 70s to today, the rate of change and the fundamental experience of how humans interact with the world and with each other we are in the constant state of evolution and revolution. Social contracts are very difficult to keep together in that instance. Our founding fathers understood that. That's why our Constitution has the process of amendment, etc. But like all systems, we have to evolve it as the landscape of the battlefield changes. The landscape of the battlefield in my lifespan, and we'll talk about what I mean by that later. There's not enough time. I'm already almost 20 minutes into this. The landscape of the battlefield of being a human has changed fundamentally and drastically since I was born. And in terms of perception, it's difficult for those who come after to really understand or grok how fundamentally different the value systems that we have to deal with, the hierarchical organization that humans have to deal with. They're all fundamentally different, but they're also all fundamentally the same. What is different? Well, a lot of it is our tool sets and how we interact with it. It's difficult to fathom the explosion of understanding and information of the world around us that has been created since I am alive. And it's very mentally, spiritually, and emotionally challenging for Homo sapiens, for people, for any animal, to adapt so many times in such a fundamental way during their mortal lifespan. Now, compound that with the internet, the thing that that I am proud of in terms of my own contribution to what is colloquially referred to as the internet. I have been a part of the technology community for an exceptionally long time, and it will come up. I will reference strange old technologies. Let's just say that when the first time that I went to the Smithsonian and saw computational devices and technologies that were on display as in that museum, and realizing that I, as a child, used to play with those things, used to contribute to that, used to be part of, you know, older hacker communities, etc. That is a perspective that very few humans have. I was dabbling in the very beginning of all of these things to see and that was part of my dreams, part of my future dreams, part of my fantasies. A lot of those fantasies have come true. A lot of them have turned into unintended consequences. And hey, how's it going, buddy?